An arrogant boxer compelled a young Black Jamaican woman to engage in a fight with the intention of demeaning her. Then, something utterly unexpected took place. Victoria Sterling, with a scornful expression, remarked, "Observe what we have before us," indicating the 18-year-old individual who had just entered the luxurious Manhattan gymnasium. The sound of fists impacting heavy bags abruptly ceased. All eyes turned towards Kesha Campbell, who was carrying a worn-out sports bag and wearing sneakers that were tattered. Her dark complexion stood in sharp contrast to the pristine white surroundings of the exclusive establishment, where the monthly membership fees surpassed 3 times the minimum wage. Victoria Sterling, who had held the title of Women's World Boxing Champion for 2 consecutive years, was renowned not only for her powerful punches but also for her even sharper verbal attacks. At 26 years old, she had established a career founded on social media provocations and contentious declarations that garnered millions of views. Her most recent Instagram post had already accumulated 500,000 likes. It featured a photograph of her flexing her muscles with the caption, "When one possesses natural superiority, there is no need to feign equality." "Excuse me, Kesha," she mumbled, verifying the address on her cracked mobile phone. "I believed this was the Youth Scholarship Initiative." Victoria's laughter resonated through the gymnasium like an irritating alarm. "Scholarship Initiative? Dear, this is not a social endeavor. We train authentic athletes here, not societal experiments." Kesha Campbell had arrived in the United States merely 6 months prior, bringing with her the aspirations of a Jamaican family who had diligently saved every bit of money to afford her an opportunity. She worked 16 hours daily cleaning offices to afford a room she shared with 3 other individuals in the Bronx. The scholarship program represented her sole chance to train at a respectable facility. "The program does exist," declared a resolute voice. Tom Rodriguez, a seasoned trainer and the proprietor of the gymnasium, emerged from his office holding a folder, stating, "And Kesha Campbell is on the approved roster." Victoria dramatically rolled her eyes. "Really, Tom? Are you intending to transform my training establishment into a non-governmental organization? My sponsors will certainly not appreciate that." Her sponsors compensate for achievements, not for your opinions regarding who trains here, Tom responded curtly. However, Victoria was not finished. She approached Kesha with a smile that more closely resembled a menace. "You know what?" Victoria continued, savoring each word. "Since you are so eager to train alongside the top competitors, how about we ascertain whether you genuinely deserve to be present?" A hush fell over the gymnasium. Everyone was aware of what was about to transpire. "A friendly sparring session," Victoria proceeded. "You against me? 3 rounds. If you can endure, you may remain. If not," she made a dismissive hand gesture. Kesha felt the weight of everyone's gaze upon her. She understood this was a snare, a public degradation designed to crush her spirit before she even commenced. Yet, there was something in her gaze, an inner fire that Victoria could not quite pinpoint, which remained steadfast. "I accept," Kesha stated calmly. Victoria furrowed her brow, anticipating tears or pleas. "Are you certain? Because once I am finished with you, you will question whether dreaming this expansively is worthwhile." "I am certain," Kesha reiterated. And for the first time since her arrival, she smiled. What Victoria Sterling did not comprehend was that she was about to discover why, in the impoverished areas of Kingston, Jamaica, Kesha Campbell was known by a very particular moniker, Lightning. And like all lightning, she only revealed her true might when the tempest struck. While Victoria was already contemplating how to transform the disgrace into viral content for her social media, Tom Rodriguez observed the determined glint in Kesha's eyes and experienced a familiar shiver. It was the same sensation he felt when he recognized a genuinely exceptional talent camouflaged as apparent vulnerability. If this narrative of bias and resolve is affecting you, remember to subscribe to the channel because what transpired during those 3 rounds was so astonishing that even today people ponder how an ordinary young woman from the Bronx managed to redefine the conventions of a sport dominated by the elite. News of the impromptu fight spread throughout the gymnasium with immense speed. In under an hour, several boxers, trainers, and even some sports journalists were present. A confrontation between Victoria Sterling and an unknown Jamaican. It promised to be the sort of cruel entertainment that social media relished. 3 rounds, 16-ounce gloves. Tom Rodriguez stipulated, attempting to minimize the impending annihilation. No wagers, no live broadcast, simply sparring. Victoria laughed. Tom, relax. It will be swift. She probably won't even last until the 2nd round. She was already recording stories on Instagram, narrating to her 2 million followers. Folks, you won't believe what's occurring here. Some random individual wants to challenge me. I am going to impart a lesson in humility to her that she will never forget. The comments began to pour in. Demolish her, Victoria. These individuals need to comprehend their proper place. Demonstrate to them why you are the monarch. While Victoria reveled in the attention, Kesha silently proceeded to the changing room. Her hands were not trembling. They never did before a confrontation, but her heart was pounding with a blend of controlled fury and painful memories she strove to keep suppressed. Tom followed her. Kesha, you are not obligated to do this. I understand the scholarship program is significant, but it is not worth sustaining injury due to her arrogance. I will not sustain injury, Kesha responded calmly, testing the borrowed gloves. She has been a world champion for 2 years. She possesses professional technique, knockout power, and experience, and I possess something she will never have, Kesha interrupted, looking directly into the seasoned trainer's eyes. Tom frowned. What would that be? Hunger. The word reverberated in the modest changing room. Tom Rodriguez had instructed hundreds of athletes over a span of 30 years, but he had seldom heard that term uttered with such profound conviction. There was something in Kesha's eyes, an intensity he had only recognized in true ring predators. Tell me something, Tom said, sitting beside her. Why did you accept it? Why not simply disregard her taunts? Kesha closed her eyes for a moment. The memories surged back, the streets of Kingston. Her mother's cries pleading with her to cease fighting. The sensation of fists connecting with surgical exactitude. The appellation, lightning, whispered with both apprehension and reverence in the slums. Because I have experienced this narrative previously, she finally stated. Individuals like Victoria believe they can shatter us with words, with disdain, with the certainty that we are inferior. But they overlooked one crucial detail. What would that be? Those who mature by struggling for survival do not fight merely for sport, they fight to exist. Tom felt a shiver run down his spine. There was something prophetic in those words, as if Kesha were not only revealing her motivation but also foreshadowing Victoria's destiny. Outside, Victoria continued her performance for the cell phone cameras. Observe what that girl is wearing, she sneered, pointing to Kesha's worn-out sneakers left in the changing room. I wager she has never even set foot in an actual ring. She probably acquired boxing skills by watching YouTube. Laughter echoed throughout the gymnasium, but some of the more experienced boxers remained silent. There was something about Kesha's posture, the manner in which she had accepted the challenge without hesitation, that elicited an instinctive caution. Marcus Williams, a former middleweight champion who now trained at the gymnasium, whispered to his sparring partner, "Man, I am unsure. I have witnessed that composure before. Sometimes the quiet ones are the most perilous." Victoria, however, was too deeply immersed in her own arrogance to notice the warning signs. Do you know the issue with people from third world countries? She continued to the cameras. They mistake desperation for proficiency. They imagine that merely because life is arduous, they automatically possess fighting abilities. Kesha emerged from the changing room at that precise moment, clad in simple shorts and a tank top that revealed surprisingly well-defined arms for someone who had supposedly never trained rigorously. Her movements were fluid, economical, like a feline preparing to strike. Ready to learn, Victoria? Victoria asked sarcastically. Always, Kesha replied. What Victoria Sterling did not know and could never have conceived was that Lightning Campbell had commenced fighting at the tender age of 8 on the streets of Kingston, not for recreation or amusement, but because it was either that or starvation. By the time she was 12, she was defeating boys 3 years her senior in clandestine bouts that generated sufficient funds to sustain her family for another week. By 16, she had become a local legend. Not for her brutality, but for her extraordinary capacity to anticipate opponents' actions and retaliate with lightning swiftness, hence the moniker she bore like an honorable scar. When she finally obtained her visa for the United States, she vowed to herself she would never again step into a ring. But some pledges are destined to be broken when one's dignity is at stake. Tom adjusted Kesha's gloves, noticing something that astonished him. Her hands were completely relaxed, but her muscles possessed the firmness of someone who had trained throughout their entire existence. "Kesha, may I ask you something?" "Certainly." "Have you truly never ever fought before?" Kesha smiled for the first time since she had arrived at the gymnasium. A faint, almost imperceptible smile, yet one that concealed secrets capable of entirely altering the situation. "Define, fight," she responded. At that instant, while Victoria persisted in her display for social media, and spectators mentally wagered on how long the amateur would endure, something extraordinary was on the verge of transpiring. Because sometimes when we undervalue someone based on superficial appearances and preconceived notions, we discover that the true predators are precisely those who have mastered concealing their strength until the exact moment to unleash it. While Victoria Sterling continued her campaign of humiliation on social media, having already uploaded 17 stories ridiculing the Jamaican amateur, something entirely different was unfolding behind the scenes at the gymnasium. Tom Rodriguez had decided to investigate Kesha Campbell more thoroughly. 30 years of coaching boxers had taught him that genuine strength rarely announces itself loudly, and there was something about this young woman that defied all logical reasoning. Her hands did not exhibit the calluses of a novice. Her reflexes were excessively rapid, and above all, her composure was unnatural for someone about to confront a world champion. "Kesha," Tom called when she finished adjusting her gloves. "May I observe you execute some basic movements? Just to assess your skill level." What occurred over the subsequent 5 minutes made Tom question everything he believed he knew about innate talent. Kesha moved around the ring with a fluidity that seemed to defy the laws of gravity. Her punches on the heavy bag possessed a surgical precision that he had only witnessed in fighters with decades of experience. "My God," Tom muttered to himself. "Who is this girl truly?" At that moment, the gymnasium door opened and someone entered who caused Kesha to completely freeze. It was Winston Campbell, a 50-year-old man with scarred hands and eyes that had seen a great deal. Her uncle, who had flown in from Miami as soon as he learned about the fight through a mutual cousin. "Lightning," Winston simply stated. The nickname echoed through the gymnasium like a gunshot. Some of the older boxers frowned as if attempting to recall where they had previously heard that name. "Uncle Winston, what are you doing here?" Kesha inquired, her voice betraying her nervousness for the first time. "I came to see if my niece has completely lost her sanity," he replied in English with a pronounced Jamaican accent. "I thought we had agreed that those days were behind us." Tom approached, intrigued. "Do you two know each other?" Winston looked at Tom with the expression of someone deliberating how much of the truth to disclose. "I have known this girl since she was 8 years old, and I can assure you that Victoria Sterling has no idea what she is about to encounter." While this conversation transpired in the corner of the ring, Victoria was on the other side of the gymnasium recording more content for TikTok. "Guys, observe this," she whispered to the camera. She even brought her family to witness her humiliation. How sweet, right? They will have much to comfort her about later. The comments on her posts had surged. "Victoria is going to annihilate that girl. Teach her not to challenge Americans. Show her what authentic boxing entails." Winston observed Victoria for a few seconds, then shook his head in disapproval. "Arrogant. Just the type Lightning used to. Well, let's just say he taught humility on the streets of Kingston." "Uncle, please," Kesha pleaded. "Do not tell anyone. I do not want anyone to know." "Know what?" Tom asked, his curiosity growing. Winston sighed deeply. "Tom, may I call you that? You seem like a respectable man, so I am going to share something with you that might alter your perception of this fight." He pointed to Kesha, who was now training alone in the corner. That girl over there was considered the finest street fighter Kingston ever produced. "Street fighter," Tom repeated. At 12, she vanquished men 3 times her size. By 15, she possessed a reputation that commanded respect from gangsters. Lightning Campbell was not merely a nickname. It was a cautionary signal. Winston paused. She ceased fighting when she obtained her visa to come here. She swore she would never set foot in a ring again. Tom looked at Kesha with fresh eyes. Then why did she consent to fight Victoria? Because, Winston said, some individuals confuse benevolence with fragility. And Lightning never tolerated being underestimated because of her skin color, her gender, or her background. Across the gymnasium, Victoria had completed another series of posts ridiculing Kesha and was now speaking to her manager on the phone. This is going to spread widely. A world champion against an amateur. It is the kind of content sponsors adore. Total dominance. Just ensure you do not injure her too severely, Victoria, the manager's voice stated over the speakerphone. We do not desire any lawsuits for physical harm. Victoria laughed loudly. Michael, relax. It will be so quick she will not have time to harm herself. Seriously. Winston overheard this conversation and his eyes narrowed. Tom, may I offer you some counsel? Bet on Lightning. Why? Because Victoria Sterling may be a world champion, but she has never contended for survival. She has never confronted someone who learned that losing signifies not eating. Lightning is not here to appear attractive. She is here to make a point. At that moment, Kesha approached them, sweat dripping down her face after her intense workout. Uncle Winston, what are you telling Tom? The truth, kid, he replied, that you are not the defenseless victim this American believes you to be. Kesha looked around the gymnasium, observing that some of the other boxers were now watching her with renewed curiosity and admiration. Uncle, I genuinely do not want to. Do not want to what? Show them who you truly are. Lightning, you have spent the past few months cleaning restrooms because you desired to commence a new existence. But when someone attempts to humiliate you due to your skin color, your background, your past, no new life can erase what is inherent in your essence. Tom felt a chill. Kesha, may I ask you something? Why did you truly accept this fight? Kesha remained silent for an extended period, gazing at Victoria, who continued recording content from the opposite side of the gymnasium. When she finally spoke, her voice possessed a harshness Tom had never before heard. Because individuals like Victoria Sterling believe they can belittle us, humiliate us, place us in our designated position based solely on the hue of our skin or our origins. She looked at me and perceived an effortless victim, a narrative for her social media, a jest to entertain her followers. Kesha paused. What she is unaware of is that in the place where I was raised, respect is not freely given, it is earned. And when someone endeavors to strip away our dignity, she smiled. However, there was something predatory about that smile. Well, sometimes lightning must remind individuals why storms are feared. At that moment, as Victoria Sterling continued her arrogant display for the cameras, completely oblivious to the conversation that was altering everything just a few feet away. Everyone in the gymnasium realized they were about to witness something far surpassing a mere friendly sparring session. It was the instant when years of silent degradation would finally articulate themselves through the blows of someone who had learned on the world's most challenging streets that sometimes the only language certain individuals comprehend is that of force applied with precise skill. The bell sounded and the two combatants met in the center of the ring. Victoria immediately launched an offensive, delivering a barrage of swift jabs that cut through the air where Kesha had been a millisecond earlier. What the hell? Victoria muttered, frowning as she observed her punches connecting with nothing but empty space. Kesha moved like vapor, always one step ahead, perpetually out of reach. Her feet glided across the canvas with a fluidity that defied physics, as if she could foresee every movement before Victoria even conceived it. Remain stationary, girl. Victoria yelled in exasperation, increasing the power of her punches. Then it happened. At the precise moment Victoria lost her equilibrium after a poorly calculated cross, Kesha retaliated. Her left fist connected with the side of Victoria's face with a sharp sound that echoed throughout the gymnasium. Victoria staggered backward, touching her face in disbelief. She had never been struck with such accuracy by a smaller adversary. "Impossible," she whispered. But Kesha was already in motion again. What ensued was a display of martial expertise that reduced the gymnasium to absolute silence. Kesha was not merely fighting. She was conducting a composition of controlled aggression. Every punch was computed. Every movement had intention. Every evasion seemed choreographed. Victoria, desperate, attempted to utilize her weight and reach advantage, but it was akin to endeavoring to grasp lightning with one's bare hands. For every blow she successfully landed, she received 3 in retaliation. For every advance she made, Kesha had already anticipated and counterattacked. "Who is this girl?" someone in the audience shouted. Winston smiled from his vantage point. "Lightning Campbell," he proudly murmured. The pivotal moment arrived in the second round. Victoria, already breathless and with her face marked, understood she had committed the gravest error of her professional career. Her arrogant social media posts continued to be shared, but now the comments had entirely shifted in tone. "Victoria is being thoroughly defeated by an amateur. Where is the world champion? That Jamaican woman is annihilating her." Jerry, her manager, shouted frantic instructions from the corner, but Victoria could barely hear him over the clamor of the crowd, which was now openly supporting her opponent. That is when Kesha resolved to reveal her true capabilities. "Lightning was never just a nickname," she stated calmly, approaching Victoria, who was retreating against the ropes. "It was a warning." The combination that followed was so swift that the mobile phone cameras could barely record it. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut, 4 punches in less than 2 seconds, all connecting with surgical precision. Victoria collapsed onto the canvas like a demolished structure. The gymnasium erupted. People screamed, cheered, and filmed everything for social media. Victoria attempted to rise, but her legs would not obey. For the first time in her life, the undefeated world champion had been knocked unconscious by someone she had labeled a social project. 10, shouted Tom, officiating the fight. "Knockout." Kesha calmly walked over to the corner where Victoria was receiving attention. "You stated you wished to teach me a lesson," she softly said. "I trust you learned that respect is not earned by skin color, nationality, or financial status. It is earned by one's character." Victoria looked at Kesha with eyes filled with tears of humiliation and for the first time something that could be respect. Jerry hastily checked Victoria's phone. Her stories ridiculing Kesha had gone viral, but now for entirely different reasons. Thousands of comments mocked her arrogance. Victoria getting destroyed by the person she called an amateur. That is what occurs when prejudice encounters reality. Lightning Campbell concluded Victoria's career in 3 rounds. "Oh my God, Victoria," Jerry exclaimed, showing her his phone. "You must witness this. Your account lost 100,000 followers in the past hour. Sponsors are terminating their contracts." Victoria took her phone with trembling hands. Her last post mocking Kesha had become a commemoration of her own disgrace. The comments were merciless. Who had the final laugh? Laugh best. Jamaican taught that racist a lesson. Lightning Campbell, arrogant Victoria. Tom approached Kesha, who was being celebrated by the entire audience. "Lightning, may I ask you something?" "Certainly. Why did you not disclose who you truly were from the outset?" Kesha looked at Victoria, who was still being assisted to her feet, completely vanquished physically and emotionally. Because sometimes individuals need to excavate their own grave before they comprehend the magnitude of the predicament they have entered. Winston embraced his niece proudly. "You are still Lightning." "No, Uncle," Kesha replied, watching Victoria being escorted out of the gymnasium amidst a torrent of sarcastic remarks. "Lightning was who I needed to be to survive. Today, I demonstrated who I genuinely am. Someone who does not tolerate disrespect, but who fights for dignity, not cruelty." As the cameras continued to record and videos of the knockout spread rapidly on social media, one question lingered in the atmosphere. Could a single confrontation redefine not only 2 professional paths, but the way an entire community perceives bias, privilege, and the authentic measure of human resilience? 3 months later, the contrast could not have been more stark. Victoria Sterling, once an undefeated world champion, resided in the modest apartment she had leased after losing her Miami mansion. Her sponsors had cancelled all contracts after the viral video amassed 50 million views in a single week. Victoria Sterling getting destroyed by the woman she called an amateur had become the most shared meme of the year, transforming her arrogance into a global jest. Nike, Adidas, Gatorade. All the brands that once paid millions for her image now refused to even return her calls. Jerry, her former manager, had been explicit in their last conversation. Victoria, you do not understand. It is not merely about the fight you lost. It is about the person you revealed yourself to be. No one desires to associate their brand with prejudice and arrogance. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the country, Kesha Campbell was signing her initial professional contract with Golden Gloves Promotions. The value, $2 million for just the first 3 fights, with a renewal clause that could reach $50 million if she maintained her performance. Lightning Campbell had become not only a sporting phenomenon but a symbol of fortitude. Brands that valued authenticity and overcoming adversity lined up to sponsor her. Under Armour launched an entire product line inspired by her story, Earned, Not Given. Tom Rodriguez was in the gymnasium office when he received an unexpected telephone call. "Hello Tom, this is ESPN. We wish to produce a documentary about how you discovered Lightning Campbell." "I did not discover anything," Tom replied honestly. "She always knew who she was. She simply required someone to respect her before witnessing her pugilistic skills in action." The transformation of the gymnasium had also been remarkable. The scholarship program, once a humble initiative, now received contributions from across the nation. Young individuals from disadvantaged communities arrived daily, inspired by Kesha's narrative. The waiting list comprised over 500 names. Winston Campbell regularly visited his niece, always with the same pride gleaming in his eyes. "Remember what I said about hunger?" he inquired during one of his visits. "You demonstrated that it is not about our origins, but about the passion we carry within." Victoria, for her part, had repeatedly attempted to re-establish herself. She created a YouTube channel offering apologies, but the comments were unsparing. She tried to return to boxing, but no prominent promoter would accept her terms. Her savings rapidly diminished without the income from sponsorships. In a desperate interview for a low-tier podcast, Victoria finally uttered the words she should have spoken months earlier. "I was completely mistaken. Kesha Campbell was not merely an exceptional fighter. She was an individual I should have respected from the very beginning. My bias blinded me to her greatness." But the internet possesses a long memory. The clip once again became a meme, Victoria attempting to apologize after losing everything. Kesha, upon hearing about the interview, displayed the grace that had always distinguished her. "I harbor no resentment toward her," she stated during an interview with Sports Illustrated magazine. "Anger consumes those who carry it. I prefer to use my energy constructing pathways for other young women like myself." Her foundation, Lightning Dreams, had already assisted 300 young women from disadvantaged communities in obtaining scholarships and athletic opportunities. The foundation's inaugural gymnasium was slated to open in Kingston, Jamaica, in the very place where she had discovered that her fists could be more than instruments for survival. During the opening ceremony, broadcast live around the world, Kesha held the microphone with the same hands that had knocked out a world champion. "This narrative is not about retribution," she declared, her voice echoing through the speakers. "It is about dignity. It is about proving that respect is not acquired through privilege, but through character." The audience erupted in applause, but she had not finished. "Victoria Sterling granted me the greatest gift of her life. She underestimated me. And when someone underestimates you, you have a choice. You can allow it to destroy you, or you can utilize it as motivation to become unbeatable." Tom Rodriguez, observing from the front row, discreetly wiped away a tear. He had coached champions for decades, but he had never witnessed anyone transform humiliation into inspiration with such finesse. Months later, when Lightning Campbell became the unified world champion, knocking out her opponent in the identical second round in which she had vanquished Victoria, the first person she thanked in her speech was neither her trainer nor her family. I wish to thank all the individuals who attempted to put me down, humiliate me, and assign me to my place. You taught me that true power does not originate from our birthplace or the shade of our skin. It originates from an absolute refusal to accept that others define our limitations. Victoria Sterling watched that fight on television in her rented apartment, alone. When the referee raised Kesha's hand, declaring her the new world champion, Victoria finally comprehended the distinction between talent and greatness. A person can be born with talent, but greatness is forged in the crucible of adversity. Kesha Campbell had not merely secured a victory in that Manhattan gymnasium. She had fundamentally altered the precepts of what it signifies to be formidable, what it means to merit deference, and most significantly, how the ultimate retaliation is not obliterating your adversary. It is transforming into everything they asserted you could never be. And as Lightning Campbell shone in the prominence of global triumph, demonstrating that some tempests do not devastate, they rather purify and strengthen. A valuable lesson resonated for anyone who has ever been undervalued, dishonored, or belittled. Never permit anyone to establish your boundaries based on prejudice. The most profound triumph is proving them entirely mistaken about your true self. If this account of transformation and equity resonated with your emotions, remember to subscribe to the channel for additional narratives that substantiate that occasionally being underestimated is precisely the advantage we require to dramatically reshape our own story.